By the end of this lesson, you will understand the major methodologies in language teaching. Learn how to apply these methodologies effectively in an ESL classroom and develop insights into combining methodologies for different learner needs. Teaching methodologies are the approaches and techniques teachers use to help students learn effectively. Knowing these methods allows you to adapt to diverse student needs, make lessons more engaging and productive, and use time-tested strategies to achieve learning outcomes. The grammar translation method focuses on translating sentences between the target language and the student's native language, emphasizing grammar rules and vocabulary. Key features include prioritizing reading and writing over speaking and listening. An example activity is translating paragraphs from English to Vietnamese and vice versa. The strengths of the grammar translation method include building strong grammar knowledge through systematic study of language rules. However, it lacks communicative practice and real-world language application, offering limited opportunities for speaking and listening practice. The direct method immerses students in the target language, avoiding translation and focusing on speaking and listening. Grammar is taught inductively through examples, not rules. An example activity is showing a picture of a cat and saying, "This is a cat," with students repeating and practicing using cat in sentences. The direct method significantly improves fluency and natural communication skills by immersing students in real-world language use. However, it demands extensive teacher involvement and constant target language immersion, which can be resource-intensive and challenging to maintain, especially in larger classes. The audio-lingual method emphasizes repetition and drills to develop habits in language use. Based on behaviorist theories of learning, it uses a stimulus-response approach. An example activity is students repeating phrases like, "I am eating," to internalize structures. The audio-lingual method builds automatic responses to common phrases, but it may feel monotonous and lacks critical thinking. Communicative language teaching focuses on using language in real-life contexts to communicate effectively. It emphasizes fluency over accuracy. An example activity is role-playing situations, like ordering food at a restaurant. Communicative language teaching prepares students for real-world communication but may neglect grammar and structured learning. Task-based learning involves students learning by completing meaningful tasks in the target language. Language is learned naturally through task completion. An example activity is planning a trip using English to discuss destinations, budgets, and itineraries. Task-based learning encourages practical use of language but can be challenging for beginners without adequate support. Total physical response uses physical movement to teach vocabulary and commands, ideal for beginners, especially young learners. Students respond physically to verbal commands. An example activity is the teacher saying, "Stand up," "Sit down," and students performing the actions. Total physical response is highly engaging and memorable but is limited to basic commands and vocabulary. Teachers often use a combination of methods to suit their students' needs. For example, using TPR with beginners to teach basic vocabulary, then transitioning to CLT for real-life practice, or using the grammar translation method to teach grammar explicitly, then practicing it in communication via TBL. Read the scenarios below and decide which methodology is most suitable. Scenario 1. Your students are beginners and struggle with vocabulary. Suggested method: TPR. Scenario 2. Your class needs to improve their speaking fluency. Suggested method: CLT. Scenario 3. Your students want to learn for academic purposes and need strong grammar skills. Suggested method: grammar translation method. TPR begins with the teacher demonstrating actions while saying the corresponding words, making vocabulary instantly understandable to beginners. Students learn by physically responding to commands, combining movement with language learning in a low-anxiety environment. This multi-sensory approach helps students build strong connections between words and actions. CLT focuses on authentic situations like casual conversations, helping students develop natural speaking abilities in everyday contexts. Through meaningful group activities and discussions, students build confidence. Role-playing scenarios allow students to practice real-world communication skills essential for tests like IELTS. GTM emphasizes clear, structured grammar teaching for students focused on academic success. Teachers provide detailed explanations of grammatical rules and structures. Students develop language skills by translating between their native language and English, strengthening their understanding of both languages' structures. This method is perfect for learners preparing for academic writing and exams requiring high grammatical accuracy. The summary table highlights the key focus, best method, and why it works for each scenario. For beginners struggling with vocabulary, TPR engages learners through actions and reduces cognitive load. For improving speaking fluency, CLT encourages natural communication. For academic purposes, GTM builds a strong foundation in grammar and vocabulary through explicit instruction and translation. For your homework, you'll be diving into research and practice. Look up a methodology that interests you and write a paragraph about why you like it and how you might use it in teaching. Additionally, plan a short activity for a lesson using one of the methodologies. The direct method is a highly effective approach for teaching IELTS speaking. It emphasizes speaking and listening directly in the target language without translation. This method immerses students in English from the start, encouraging natural thinking and communication. When applying the direct method in IELTS speaking, use real-life situations to introduce topics, engage students in active conversation, focus on pronunciation and sentence structure, and encourage immediate responses. The direct method offers several benefits for IELTS speaking. It builds confidence through repetition and practice, prepares students for Part 1 of the speaking test, and develops their speaking skills efficiently. Let's look at a short activity using the direct method. The rapid-fire questions activity aims to improve students' fluency and confidence in answering common IELTS speaking Part 1 questions, encouraging spontaneous English thinking and speaking. To set up the rapid-fire questions activity, you'll need a list of IELTS Part 1 questions prepared by the teacher. Examples of questions include, what do you usually do on weekends? And, do you prefer living in a big city or a small town? The procedure for the rapid-fire questions activity includes a brief introduction, activity execution where students answer questions spontaneously, and optional corrective feedback if a student makes a significant mistake. Here are some example interactions in the rapid-fire questions activity. For instance, the teacher asks, what's your favorite food? And the student responds, my favorite food is pizza because it's delicious. Rotate through the class to ensure every student answers at least 2-3 questions. An example of corrective feedback. If a student says, I like pizza because it's delicious, the teacher can correct them by saying, you can say, pizza is delicious. Can you repeat that? The student then corrects their sentence. For follow-up, review 1 or 2 commonly repeated errors at the end of the activity. Encourage students to practice similar questions at home using a recording device or a language app. The rapid-fire questions activity aligns with the direct method by focusing on real-time speaking practice, encouraging thinking in English without translation, and building confidence through immediate language use. The rapid-fire questions activity offers several benefits, including time efficiency, mental agility, and targeted practice specifically for IELTS speaking Part 1 question types. This activity can be adapted for different levels. For beginners, use simpler questions and allow more response time. For intermediate students, use standard IELTS Part 1 questions. For advanced students, include more complex questions and expect more elaborate answers. In conclusion, the direct method, as demonstrated through activities like rapid-fire questions, proves to be an effective approach for IELTS speaking preparation. It improves fluency, builds confidence, encourages natural language use, and prepares students for better test performance.